Welcome to Baseball Biz. I'm Mark Carpet, your host with Baseball Biz on Deck, that is. And with me today is Mr. Chris Smith. He's been on here recently. We got part two of the interview with Chris. You know, he's been did quite a bit with baseball for about 10 years, worked with the Yankees, worked with the Blue Jays, the Tigers, the Nationals, and not to mention the Beach Bums and the Sand Pups, I believe. We had a nice talk with Chris about his journey through the Independent League, the Frontier, the Pecos League, the Australian League, and his entrance into Major League Baseball. So, Chris, welcome back. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Glad to be back. I appreciate it. Yeah. It's, sorry for the long-winded story. You know, it just keeps on going, right?
Oh no, brother, it's great. I love hearing all this stuff. You know, and I'm thinking about all that, and now I would remind folks too that you're here in Tampa Bay, just much like myself, but you're also a real estate executive these days. This is my plug for Chris. He didn't ask for it. He's with the Compass Group, I believe, and we'll talk a little bit more about that maybe toward the end of the show. But being on Baseball Biz on Deck, the one thing we can't help talk about is the business. You know, I was at a doctor of mine recently, Chris, and he said, well, what are you going to do with the show? I mean, you got a World Series coming up. It's going to close. What are you going to do? I said, dude, it's called Baseball Biz for a reason. And I said, the hot stove is just starting to cook up, and there's a whole lot more going on, including what's going on in the Dominican Winter League, what's going on as far as right now, the winter meetings. It's November 8th. The managers are meeting in Vegas, and they're all just putting their pencils down and figuring, should we trade this guy? I don't know if I can work a deal on him or not. And players are deciding whether or not they're going to take the option with some teams that they may have or move on. It's a crazy time with free agents, and you don't know where a lot of these people are going to land. I mean, it's crazy, man. I mean, you're seeing this.
Yeah. I mean, off season is the business, you know, that's whenever most of the business happens, and a lot of transactions and a lot of rosters are made, and a lot of people are taking off rosters during that time frame, you know, and this is definitely a busy time of the year. It's baseball might not be being played, but this is the time where they're building those rosters for the next year.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm looking at it right now, and MLB trade rumors, and they got, of course, let's see, Yankees to make qualifying offer to Anthony Rizzo. Dusty Baker will return as Astros manager, as if. Phillies decline on Juan Segura, and Anthony Rizzo declines player option on Yankees. This is going to be an interesting story. White Sox exercise Tim Anderson's club option. Not surprising there. They're declining Josh Harrison. I don't know. While we're talking about all these changes, as we left the first part of our interview, you were talking about a major transition for you. Can we kind of revisit what happened from you to the Australian League and coming back to the States?
Yeah. So I just recently signed with the Yankees at the time, and I was making my first spring training visit, you know, with the Yankees. I was all excited. You know, I'm 23 years old, I believe, at this time. And I'm just stoked to be there. I remember I'm throwing my first bullpen. I just got done throwing 230 innings the year before, you know, from independent ball to the men's league to the ABL. You know, I totaled up 230 innings, and it was quite a bit of a workload, especially for a guy like me. I throw a lot of sliders in like my outings. Like, I think in that one outing that literally I threw like maybe 70 sliders in that one where I broke the strikeout record. Like, it's just that's always been my pitch. So regardless, I ended up starting kind of developing like a little bit of a stress reaction in my mid-ulna, my forearm, and I didn't really know it at the time. And I showed up to camp, and I threw my first bullpen. And that's kind of whenever I found out a lot about money in affiliated ball, because I love this guy to death, a guy named Ty Hensley, who's a first rounder by the New York Yankees. And he was coming back from an injury, and he was to the left of me throwing a bullpen, and I'm on the right side of him throwing a bullpen. And this is my first Yankee bullpen. I am stoked to be there. I think, like I said, this is my World Series. Every like new achievement's like a World Series kind of feeling for me. The adrenaline's pumping. And I'm throwing to a guy by the name of Wes Wilson, and he's my catcher, and I'm throwing as hard as I can, but my arm's kind of bothering me, but I'm not feeling it because I'm just so excited.
Right.
And Wes walks out and he's like, "Dude, calm down. Just one bullpen." I was like, "You don't understand. Like, this is like everything. But at the same time, I was throwing a bullpen. I realized that not a single coach, pitching coordinator, or anybody saw what I just did because I had a first rounder next to me. And then that's right whenever I was like, that's whenever I really understand the money in baseball was a thing. And I was going to have to do something that was going to like make me stick out, to stick around.
Well, and that's something, I mean, you talked about your arm health, but before they even let you come to the Yankees, they ran some tests as well, didn't they?
Yeah, we ran an MRI whenever I was out in Australia. We sent it over, and they thought it would just needed a couple weeks rest, and which is what I got after I got done with Australia. They shut me down as soon as I signed with the Yankees, and then I took like a 2 or 3 week break off, and I was fine. I was like, okay, it's all back. And then whenever I got to camp, was feeling fine, and then after my second bullpen, we had a live BP, and I think I was about 10 pitches into my live BP, and I felt a crunch in my arm, like a different crunch. But I threw like another like 20 pitches on it because I was like, I just got here. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not, I will throw until like my arm literally breaks in half. Well, it kind of did. I thought that I was like, okay, well, maybe it's just really sore getting back into it. So I was icing it. I was chugging milk. I was like trying to do all the above for like this damn bone, and then the next day I tried to come out and throw with somebody, and I couldn't even throw it like 60 feet, and I was like, something's wrong. I got to say something, and I never say anything. And I went up to my pitching coordinator and I said, hey, I said Gil Patterson at the time. I was like, I got to say something. Something's wrong with my arm. And I went in and they did an MRI. The MRI came back fine. But then they did a CT scan. In the CT scan, they found a stress reaction in my middle and in my forearm, like around like this section right here.
Ouch.
So developed from a lot of innings throwing, and just from like the previous year not having as much and that workload. And yeah, it was an injury that it's not very common and not too many people have seen at that time. So it was, but unfortunately, I missed the whole year. Like, it was supposed to be like a 6 to 8 week recovery, and then after 6 to 8 weeks, they did another CT scan, and there was still a stress reaction. But I mean, I was going to the complex every day. I was doing everything I could. It was just the bone healing just wasn't happening. I mean, I was on vitamin D pills, like I was, and the whole. I mean, it was frustrating. But it's my first year. I kind of I missed with the New York Yankees, so I was afraid that, dang, I just missed a whole year. Like, hopefully this year of me being around the complex and them seeing like, hey, I'm still here working out, doing everything I can that I can. Um, hopefully that kind of gives me a shot to come back, and I did. It gave me a shot to come back.
Well, that's something. Again, I look back at what you're doing then, the perseverance, the commitment, to get through that. And like, a lot of pitchers, they'll pitch through the pain almost to the detriment of their health. But, they make an investment. They're saying, I am bringing this athlete on. I'm expecting great things, but they also know that there are the odds that things can happen to any young athlete. So I'm curious, can you share with us anything about what did the Yankees do during that interim for that year? I mean, was there anything where they were checking on you, or their doctors giving any kind of special treatments or direction? What was that year like as far as input from the Yankees?
Yeah, I mean, the Yankees, honestly, they're such a top-notch organization. There's like, honestly, when they say like the treatment is like top notch, it is very top notch. Like, they are on top of everything. They had a plan for me. Like, we had many doctor follow-ups. Uh, awesome guy named Greg Spratt. He's a guy that's a trainer there. He worked diligently with me. Like the strength staff that's there, and it's great because it's like at the complex. You know what I mean? So it was it was cool, but it was also kind of, it stunk for the guys. But like, that was the year everybody on the New York Yankees were hurt. So my first year with the Yankees, I had Alex Rodriguez around, I had Derek Jeter around, I had Kevin Youkilis around, I had Mark Teixeira around. So like, all these like big name guys like working out at the complex, and it's like, I don't know. I mean, I shared a coat tub with Derek Jeter, and like, I was like, like, I was starstruck being my first year. It was like an idol of mine growing up. And then it's like, he walks in the room and he's like, "You mind if I share that coat tub?" And I like looked around. I was like, "You want me to?" I was like, "You can get in here alone. Like, I can just come back." It's like, "Dude, I don't care." And we sat down there for like 10 to 15 minutes and shot the shit. And he was just a great person, good human being. Like he's just a good guy, and it was just cool for me being like such a young guy and like looking up to him and him just treating
Yeah.
me like just like a normal human being, like a normal player around there, like I kind of tip my cap to him for that. He's just a good guy for that. Like it meant a lot to me. So
Well, I can understand the reason why they call him the captain then, because he is a leader, and everything I've ever seen on him from as a spectator is somebody who supports that team, in the players when the dugout, from the locker room as well. So I'm glad to hear from you that that's not just me as a spectator
yeah,
seeing a face that's on the screen, that's all we get to see. That's actually that same persona is actually there in the clubhouse as well.
for sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, it was cool to be, like your first time in affiliate ball and around all these like Yankee greats. Like that first year I got to see Mariano throw too, and I got to watch his routine. And it just like, those are Hall of Fame guys, like that you're like in the presence of, and like just getting into baseball and being around that, going, okay, like you can pick up on some of their mannerisms, how they go about their business, how professional they are, how they treat people. Like a lot of the times the reason why you stay in the game is with how you treat people. A lot of people get opportunities because they're good teammates or they're leaders in different ways. So you pick up on a few of those things and try to mimic some those guys a little bit. So it's cool to be around those guys for sure. It motivates you. It motivates you.
Well, I'm glad to see that, glad to hear that. And I was curious too, as far as some of those personalities and bigger than life people, and but and still realize that you're part of that pantheon of
Mhm.
baseball heroes at that point too, as far as anybody else watching the Yankees is going to see it that way. And I know you're coming with an idea of a fan as well as a player, though, when you're side by side with some of these guys who made such big careers. And like you said, taking in some of the things that you see that are of value about how they treat people, and even their style with when they're out there in the field. But you're in the middle of this whole thing with your arm during that year. Are you taking in knowledge from watching them, saying that I may actually make changes about what I do on the mound from that?
For me, I mean, like I was just hoping I was gonna be able to come back and throw pain free, like at that point, because I was the it just kept getting pushed back and more and more and more. And like and then after like we got on like week 16 or like week 18, it was just like Tim was like, it's time to throw. Like it's not gonna get any better unless you start throwing. And so we just gotta get your arm back in motion and moving after this long time. So I worked with the rehab coaches over there. They really kind of don't push you too much, but they kind of get you to where you need to be, I guess, like to get on to the next phase. There's always phases in like your rehab, and like and jumping over that hoop of going like you can throw pain free is like I feel like a big proponent of getting out of that rehab phase. And it was cool because I mean, at the time I was young, so I had to literally go to every single GCL home game. So that was the first year the New York Yankees had two GCL teams.
It's Gulf
So
Coast League, right? In Florida.
yes, yeah, yeah. So and it's all held at the complex. Well, most teams or whatever only have one GCL team. So whenever that team's on the road, a lot of the guys, like the rehab guys, like you don't travel to wherever the team is. You get home very early. Well, my first year there, no, I watched every single game of the GCL because we always had a home team, and you pick up a lot from there though. Like I'm gonna be honest, that was very eye opening, and you get to know the coaches and everything like that because you're around, And a guy named Justin Pope was an amazing pitching coach there, and he was in the GCL helping, and he helped me out on so much like mindset of getting back on the mound because he'd been through injuries before, and just talking to those guys and having those guys in your corner and them seeing you kind of ask questions and work like you need people in your corner if you're going to play affiliated ball, and you gotta show these people that you're willing to work, and if you're willing to work and you got some coaches that are like willing to give you the work, like give you the time of day, like that's what I always strive for. It's like, hey, like give me more to do. Like what more can I do to be better? Like give me time, give me the coaching, like I always like that because it was always something that I appreciate it because it was like they're investing their time. They might not have invested money into me, but they're investing their time into me, which is pretty big. Like that's kind of how I felt at that point.
Well, I mean, you're able to develop yourself. I mean, unlike when you were first coming in, was it the independent or the Frontier League? It's like you show up, you better be play. If you're not doing exactly what we need, you're gone. And you're now in a stage where they're helping you, they're giving you guidance, they're checking your health, they're developmental. You're working with coaches and who have insights that you're not going to find in some of those first places that you were at. So. So how did that advance with the Yankees? Where did your career go with the Yankees from there?
Yeah. So then 2014, I showed up and I had a healthy spring training, a really good spring training. It felt good. And then they decided to help hold me back to extended spring training a little bit, just to make sure like my arm was healthy and stuff like that a little longer. So stayed back about a few weeks, and then had my first opportunity with the Charleston River Dogs and in low A. That was my first like kind of affiliate experience. So it was awesome. Like I remember it like it was yesterday. It was like stepping out into the field. I was like, damn, like I can now tell my kids that I pitched, not just had a uniform or signed with them. I pitched in like an affiliate. And but I also had that feeling that I had a target on my back again. Like I felt like I had to be that kind of pitch perfect guy. And if not, then I was gone. So trying to get that kind of monkey off my back was tough. Like I'm gonna be honest, throughout my whole career, that was something that kind of not held me back, but like was always there. That hey, you gotta if this wasn't good, like it was like it made me better, but it also kind of like was always something in the back of your head that kind of doesn't allow you to pitch comfortable. You know what I mean? Um, but yeah, so then I'm with the low A, and I just gave up a home run to Yastrzemski or whatever. This whenever he was in low A and with the Rangers, he hit it out of the stadium on me, and my ERA went up to a 4.5. And I had only been in low A for probably about 3 weeks, and then I was playing with a guy named Caleb Smith, and at that point he had like a .7 ERA, and he was in low A with me. Well, then we go into the office. I had this eerie feeling that I was getting released. I just had that feeling again, and I'm like, man, I feel like something's going to happen. My trainer goes, "Hey, Chris, the manager wants to see you in the office." And I was like, "Damn, I knew it." And I walk in, and they promoted me. They were promoting me, and I kind of looked around, and I was like, "You got the raw. You have the right C Smith, because like Caleb Smith, like I said, I had like literally a .7 ERA at this time,
Right.
And I was like, "You got the right C Smith," and they're like, "Yeah, they need you in high A tomorrow. They need you there tomorrow." And I was like, "Okay, I'll be there tomorrow." So
Not going to ask twice.
no, all right, thanks. I'm out of the office. Like that's what you wanted me for. I'm gone. Thank you. Sign papers. I'm gone. So yeah, I got back to our apartment after that trip, packed up until about 2 a.m. Got on the road at like 5, and then I drove to Tampa, and then I came to high A, and Danny Burrell was my pitching coach. He was somebody that I really connected with too. He really was like very hands on with players. Like if you had questions, he didn't care how much money you had next to your name. He was there to help you. He was he was a pitching coach, and we had a lot of great players. Like at that point, I came up with like I was playing with Judge, Mike Ford, Mason Williams, Cito Culver, Dante Bichette. Like I was playing with all like our big guys. Gary Sanchez was our catcher.
Wow.
Cal Higashioka was our catcher. Was my catcher coming up. So I mean, we had some star-studded lineups, coming up through my minor leagues, and just I got to meet Judge in my first year, and like I even talked to you about this on the plane as well. Like Judge is honestly like one of the nicest human beings, not just in baseball but on the planet. And like no matter how much stardom comes next to that guy's name, he's always the same Judge. So kudos to that guy. Just like from the time I met him, like he didn't care how much money I had next to my name. He was just like Smitty and Judge, like we were just good friends like along the way. And it's like we don't see each other anymore, but hey, if I was to text him, he's always genuine enough to like text me back when he has time, which is like just kind of shows you the human he is. So like that's another thing too, is you come across like I told you, like, man, this is the experience. Like baseball, yes, like to get to where I am and like what I'm doing is awesome, but the people that I met along the way, just like that's another driving factor. Like when you're in the game and you're going through the grind with the guys that signed for millions of dollars, but also the guys that just got a plane ticket to, spring training. Like when you're in that kind of same like grind with everybody,
Yeah.
like I'm living in living room floors with blow up mattresses, Like my first year with the Yankees, I asked you this on the plane. I said, how much money you think I made with my first year with the Yankees? And everybody's like, like 60, 70,000. No, I made $11,000 total. And like, that's how much you make. So it's a grind, and like, I think times now are getting a little bit different. We kind of talked about that as well, like with there being a new system in place, but yeah, it's cool because of the grind you're going through and all these guys you play with. But yeah, got to high with that good group of guys, and it was a fun. I finished the year with them in high. So in 2014, finished the year really well. Finished the year really well, thinking I had a spot when I came back in 2015 with them.
You went from there to.
I got released twice in 2015 by the Yankees.
Yeah, so you're doing this. You get to be shoulder to shoulder with some greats. I mean, and you're there for a reason too, because of things that you're able to achieve. But not surprisingly, there is a difference in paychecks. Even in the Yankees organization, I don't think most people realize that. When you asked me how much, what I guess you made that first year, I threw out the number 12,000, but only because I've done a lot of research on this, and I think it's insane that these young men are out there getting paid virtually nothing. You could bag at local Publix and make more money, part time. But it's a hard.
It was more than the $70 a week I was making, or my very first contract was $600 a month with the Crushers. So I thought I was a millionaire at that point.
Heck yeah, brother. I mean, and you're not one of those poor guys who is paying to be there on the bus.
Very true.
Oh gosh. Well, that's an exciting time, but your career changed after that as well. So what happened? What happened with the Yankees after that?
So then my year finished up in 2014. Like I said, I felt like I threw pretty well, like well enough to be able to have an opportunity to kind of advance with all my other guys I kind of came up with, up to AA with the Trenton Thunder. And I show up to spring training, and I was having a great spring. I think I only gave up like maybe one run, and I threw like 9 innings and like threw really well. But I got my first, I got to go over to the major league side for the first time as a backup in 2015, and that was cool. And I remember Danny Burrell being like, hey, like, just want to let you know, like, we don't send anybody over there. Like, we don't just send, like, we try to send people over that we kind of see as an organization that can eventually be over there. And I remember having that conversation with him vividly, and I was like, that's awesome. And like, I was playing catch with the right fielder at the time. What Judge wasn't playing at the time. Who was it? Switch hitter came over from the Astros, Hall of Famer, Carlos Beltran. Beltran's out there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I was playing catch with him out there, and I was like, damn, like, this is kind of cool. Like, and that was, and you're around Aroldis Chapman and all those guys, they're all signed, and Andrew Miller's there. It was kind of cool to like go over and be in like at a baseball game and be part of the team, and like, that's when it was like, damn, okay, like, there's another stepping stone. Like, okay, I can be here. But then, ironically, I'll never forget it. I am getting ready to walk out of spring training and head to AA with the New York Yankees. I'd already gotten like my number. They've already given me drive money. They've already I already had my car packed up, ready to go for the 17-hour drive up. I'm walking out of the complex, and Danny's like, hey, come see me before you leave. I was like, okay. And then I went back to the back where my rehab pitching coach was back there, a guy named Greg Pavlik. And I was like, Pav, you seen Danny or Gil? And he's like, hey, what are you going to do next, Smitty? You going to be all right? And I was like, yeah, I'm about to go up to Trenton. I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, yeah, I'm going to be fine. Like, I can't wait. He's like, oh, okay, Smitty, well, good luck. And it hit me. As soon as I walked out of that damn meeting, I walked out, and I was like, I just sat down. I texted my mom and dad, said, I'm about to get released. And then I texted another buddy of mine, Alex Smith, who just left. And I was like, hey, I'm getting ready to get released. He's like, dude, no, you're not. No, you're not. Sure as shit. I walk out to the weight room, and Gil Patterson passes behind me. And I guess Gil and Pav had already talked. And Pat was like, I think Smitty knows. And then Gil was like, come on, follow me. And I walked back there and I got axed. And that was a tough conversation because I felt like I did everything I could to be like to make a team but at the same time, like Gary Dimbo was the manager, or not the manager, but the farm director, and he was like, look, you're 24 years old. We didn't want to put a 24-year-old in extended spring training or anything like that. We're just trying to. And I was like, I understand. I was like, it's just frustrating on my end because I was like, I thought I did everything I could. Like I literally gave up like 2 hits and only 1 run all spring. And I was like, I did. And literally the week before they told me like, hey, it was a backup over there. So I really felt like I had a spot. So yeah, they released me. So then I went home to Louisville and I thought, okay, well, damn, I'm just through my first like 94, 90. I was like throwing 93, 94 at this point now as a reliever because they brought me back as a reliever. So I was like, oh, now I've gas in the tank. I know I do. I know I can be there. So I go back home. I sign an independent ball contract, and I'm getting ready to go. Like I had planned to go to Kentucky Derby now, like something I also hadn't been to in a while. And then Danny Burrell texts me and goes, hey, what are you doing, with a smiley face? And I was like, nothing. Obviously wish I wasn't here, like I was like, I should be in damn Trend right now, man. And he texted me back. He was like, gonna call you in a second. And then called me back and they actually re-signed me. So they re-signed me. They said they felt like they kind of made an error. They felt like they could give me some double A innings. One of the pitchers got hurt in double A within the first week. So they kind of felt like some innings opened up there. They didn't want to move somebody from high. So I got a shot, I guess. So they re-signed me. And then they told me I was going to be extended for like a couple outings, go up to double A. Well, then I was in extended spring training for like 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks. And then they put me in high A. And then I was back in high A for a good couple weeks. And then finally I got my chance up in double A. So
wow.
Finally got called up at double A. And that was like a huge feat for me too, because I'm seeing like, oh shoot, they told me like I can't compete at the double A level, because they talk about like where there's levels in baseball. And honestly, in the minor league level, like there's a jump, obviously from rookie ball to low A full season. Like low A short season and GCL, I could say could probably be a little bit comparable, depending on like, it's a little bit more college with the short season, kind of whenever I played. And then like there was a jump between low A and high. There's a little one, but it's like, it's more of like, can you get the power numbers, especially in the Florida State League, whenever I was playing, like, because
Right.
the Florida State League, man, like the ball did not travel as well there other than a few stadiums, especially here in Tampa. It's kind of a graveyard. But that jump from high to double A at that time, it felt like that's where all the prospects were. Like all the up and coming prospects that year felt like it was in double A. So it was like that's where everybody was saying was the biggest jump. And then by the time I got up to triple A, whenever I got with the Blue Jays in the next year or two, like I felt like double A to triple A was a huge jump, because then you're playing with like grown men that have been like in the game for X amount of years, that just are like, they're like 4A players, like if they had a little bit more of an opportunity, they'd be there, but that's like a whole different story in itself. So double A, and they, with the Yankees in double A, and I'm like super pumped about it, to be honest.
It is interesting to see how a career can evolve, and how you're supported and maybe how you're not. I mean, not just you specifically, but, players and arm health. That's something I've always wondered about seeing. And it sounds like the Yankees organization, did more than I think a lot of us would ever think they would for their players. So that was encouraging to hear. Maybe we'll wrap this, and then I'd like to come back and do one. Maybe we're a little bit more extensive on what you did with the Blue Jays, if that works for you.
Yeah.
Because I want to hear the story, Chris. You got a great story to tell, and I think people are going to love to hear it. To put it in bites, I think we had a really good part one. I think this whole thing with the Yankees makes a really good part two.
Yeah.
And then later on, maybe we have you on the show and we talk about the Blue Jays. I
Yep.
saw Vlad Jr. said something, I think it was today, said, I would not even play for the Yankees in death or something like that. And I was like, what does that mean?
Oh yeah. When Vlad said that, I was like, man, like, what are you doing, man? You're eliminating one of the teams.
Oh, well. Oh, yeah. You removed some of your leverage now.
Yeah, seriously. I'm telling you, man, like getting that extra player in there, just let them throw in the deal and just use their deal against them.
That's
I'm
right.
telling you. Telling you, like, you don't want to eliminate teams. That was one of the biggest things they said to us in the minor leagues. Hey, you're not just playing for us; you're playing for 29 other teams. So, like, that's another thing is like, even when I felt like maybe I was like stuck with the Yankees and I wasn't gonna be like moving on because like some guys are moving and I wasn't. Like, it was more of like, okay, well, what can I do now? The situation I am, like, where can I like show another team, just in case I get released. Is
Right.
another team going to sign me? Like that's where like I took that to heart too. It's like, yeah, the Yankees might not be the team I make it with.
Chris Smith, pitcher extraordinaire, Yankees, Detroit Tigers, Blue Jays, Nationals. Oh my gosh. And sometime I want to talk to him about the Dominican Winter League. My gosh, Chris, thank you, buddy. I appreciate you being on here today on Baseball Biz on Deck.
Yeah. Hey, like I said, very long-winded story. And like I said, I don't get to talk about this very much, and you're getting the long version. So it's also fun to kind of catch up and talk to you again. Like you were such a awesome person to meet on the plane, and I'm glad we're having another conversation now.
Well, I appreciate it, brother. It's great having you on here, and I can't say enough about what you're sharing with us today. And it's like there's so much more. I think we can give people kind of a good introduction about what can happen when a player wants to do something, and you've got that burning in your heart when you're there at Butler High School and your buddies are there. You got a good core, and Adam Duvall who's done quite well with the Braves, and he's got a special little ring on his finger these days.
Yeah,
There's
along with the Giants too, actually.
That's right. I forgot about that. Geez, Manise. Yeah. So, and the folks you get to work with, the ones that come up with you, the mentors you get, the pitching coaches, the experiences. I mean, that is huge. So I want to thank you again for sharing some of that with us today, man. And I look forward to having you back again here on Baseball Biz on Deck. And these great stories.
Yeah, man. It's all the personal ones. It's the ones that not too many people get to hear about. So I'm glad I get to share it with some people.
Well, thank you, Chris. And remind folks, too, that Chris is a real estate executive in Tampa, and he's with the group called Compass. And where can they find more of you online, Chris?
You can find me on Instagram, C_Smitty7, or you can email me, chris.smith@compass.com. Like if you have any real estate needs, I'd be happy to help anybody.
Fantastic, brother. Okay. Well, thank you again for joining us today here on Baseball Biz on Deck. And you can find us on just about everywhere, whether it's on Twitter. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and 100 others I can't think of, iHeartRadio. So thank you all again for joining us here today, and we'll talk with you again real soon. Special thanks to XTake RUX for the music rocking forward.